The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
TV party tonight! What? TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my circuit!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary dog!
Pearson at Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, the original, classic, mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, our favorite show is Kaleidoscope, which is an American heist drama television miniseries created by Eric Garcia. The 8-part series, unique for its shuffled order, centers around master thief Leo Pap, played by Mandalorian famous Giancarlo Esposito, also from Breaking Bad, and his crew attempting an epic heist worth $7 billion. But betrayal, greed, and other threats undermine their plans. Kaleidoscope was released on January 1st, 2023 by Netflix, and this series was brought to you by Nano Chameleon, Automatique Entertainment, Scott Free Productions, and the aforementioned Netflix. Joining me tonight is Alexis Hejna from Honeysuckle Rose Creations from Parts Unknown. How do you do, Alexis?
Coming to you from beyond the void. Still having problems with my visual parts here, but you guys get to still listen to my lovely voice.
That's until I put you in the basement.
You'll never keep me in the basement, Radulich.
I have a friend who keeps saying that if she gets bound and tied up and whatever else, that she's like Houdini and can always escape. Is that you? Is every time I shove you in the basement, you pop up again? Like, look, I have a trailer for us to watch. Fuck, get down, Alexis. At least I put Jason down there with you to keep you company.
Yeah, fair enough.
And ladies and gentlemen, from our Ted Lasso podcast, the casual hero himself, this ain't no bunk. Lex Luger ain't no bunkhouse, ain't no cowboy. Jesus Christ.
Right. He's not a cowboy.
God damn it.
I'll tell you what, Mark. Why don't you start that over? We'll give you another chance.
Why don't you start it over? Lex Luger ain't no cowboy, but God damn it, Gavin Napier is. How do you do, Gavin?
Well, I'd be better if I hadn't watched Kaleidoscope, but that's what we're here to discuss.
That is what we're here. All right, let's get this therapy session underway. So right off the bat, the reason why we're talking about this, and the reason why I'm heading up the discussion, well, the reason I'm heading up the discussion is Gavin's here, and I just want to talk to Gavin. Hi, pretty boy.
So you better have a good reason. You're stripping my job.
That's right. Get in the basement, you. Now, I wanted to talk about this because even though I'm not doing a lot of television reviews anymore, occasionally something comes up that piques my interest, tickles my fancy, and I want to have a discussion about it. I don't always have to lead it, but in this case, I had a lot I needed to process. And Gavin, you actually pitched this to me. You were like, "Hey, have you seen this?" And the whole reason behind the pitch was like Black Mirror Bandersnatch. This was one of those television shows that was making use of the internet streaming capabilities, in that while Bandersnatch was kind of a choose your own adventure kind of a thing where you could pick where the movie was going to go from one place to the next, this was the gimmick behind it was they were going to release all 8 episodes.
8, 9 something.
Yeah, 8 episodes, and you could watch them in any order that you wanted. And you and I kind of talked about that for a moment, and like, hey, that's an interesting concept. Let's see if this is at all successful. And then, Alexis, you had expressed interest in this too. So let me go over to you first, Gavin. What about the watch it in any order you want was, before anything else, appealing to you?
I think it was marketed well. I think Netflix did a good job of presenting it as a gimmick. I think ultimately there was a lot more style than substance to it, because I realized pretty quickly that this show is just bagel bites in television form. You can have pizza in the morning, pizza in the evening, pizza at supper time, and pizza's on a bagel. You can have pizza anytime. Well, also, when you're an adult, you can have pizza anytime. And yes, with Kaleidoscope, you can watch the episodes in any order that you want. You know what else you can watch in any order you want? Anything else. Literally anything. I could watch Breaking Bad in any order that I want, and I would still get the same story. It would just be up to me to piece it together, just like Kaleidoscope. So it was a hats off to them. They sucked me in with the gimmick, but ultimately, I don't think it meant anything.
What about you, Alexis? You saw them pitch this idea out there to the world. You can watch the show in any order that you want. We're going to have colorful names, literally colors for each episode. You can watch it in dramatic order. You can watch it in linear order like I did. You can watch it in presented order on the Netflix, the way Gavin did. People were really having fun, and I know this is something you would want to talk about. There was this whole sort of like cottage industry of people creating lists in order to watch this in. So what about all of that was appealing to you?
It's just the idea that we're experimenting with new ways to interact with our media. I like the idea that, and Gavin, you are absolutely right. You can choose to watch something in any order. It's not like somebody is locking you in saying you have to watch this in. It's not like, when we watch TV on, regular TV, it's like you have to watch the episode that plays that night. You don't get to pick what other episode you want. I just love this idea of experimenting with what we can do now that we have all of this technology and these capabilities with streaming. And I'm not going to say that this was a brilliant idea. I'm not, but it was. I think that this is going to unlock a lot of potential for what we can do with streaming and episodes like this. I really think, even though this may not be, the groundbreaking, oh my God, this was riveting series, because it wasn't. I do think this is going to open up a lot of doors.
So I have the list that I watched this in the chronological order. The episodes are Violet, which is 24 years before the heist. Green, 7 years before the heist. Yellow, 6 weeks before the heist. Orange, 3 weeks before the heist. Blue, 5 days before. White, the actual heist itself, which if you watched it in the presenter order, was the finale. Red, the morning after. And pink, why do I have to be pink? Because you're a faggot. Pink, 6 months after. And I think before we get into the craft of this thing, performances, settings, story, that sort of thing, let's first speak to how successful or unsuccessful this gimmick was. And the first thing I want to say, watching it in chronological order, because as Robert Winfrey has said time and time again, I am married to lineal structures. I am married to lineal story structure, which is weird because I also love Pulp Fiction. But let's go with that for just a moment. I could not handle this show jumping. I had the same problem with The Witcher, where I couldn't follow when things were happening, and it bothered me, and it took away my enjoyment of the show. I have to watch things in order. Things have to have a natural progression. So starting with 24 years before and ending with 6 years later, that worked for me. Here's what doesn't work for me, Gavin, and I want to get your opinion on this. The show, because it is serving this master of compartmentalized storytelling so that it doesn't really matter what order you watch these in, and the order you watch these in dictates your viewing experience. I felt like there wasn't enough connective tissue between each episode, which I think is a major failing of the story structure for Kaleidoscope. Not to beat this particular dead horse, but when I watch The Wire, I'm very much interested in what's going to happen in the next episode. Not that every episode ends in a stinger, but you're like, ooh, they got a major piece of evidence. They've cracked the clock code. What are we going to do now? What's going to happen next? They figured out where the cans are disappearing and how they're disappearing and what horse face Pacusa has to do with all of this. What are they going to do in the next episode? You know, there was a lot about these kinds of shows, that Breaking Bad being a great example of this. There would be something at the end of the episode where you're like, what's going to happen next? I'm interested. I have to come back next week. These were almost little mini movies. And at the end of it, the movie was over. And I didn't necessarily feel like there was a lot of connective tissue, a lot of magnetism into, drawing me into the next episode. I could have just as easily just watched the heist episode and watched an hour-long short heist movie. And I do love a nice heist movie, Gavin. I like my Ocean's 11s and my Italian jobs and whatnot. And I would have been perfectly okay just watching the White episode and being done with this. What say you, sir?
I think that's fair. I think what I noticed immediately, I started with Pink. I just picked something at random, and that's where I started. And then I went in the order that Netflix presented them to me. So starting with Pink, the thing that I noticed jumping from Pink to whatever the next episode was it lent itself to a lot of very heavy-handed exposition at the beginning of each episode. And whether it's a movie, a short story, a television series, a comic book, whatever, if you're relying on exposition, it's going to stink. If you have to spell everything out for your audience along the way rather than just dropping crumbs and letting them piece it together, you're just dragging yourself down. And so that exposition in place of the connective tissue between each episode, I think really hurt the series for me. Again, I think the gimmick was well intended and it was wonderfully marketed. I just don't think that they executed it terribly well. I'm with you. I love a good heist movie. They're fun, they're witty, they're fast-paced. They force you to pay attention instead of trying to multitask. And I think overall, the heist part itself was relatively well done. And we'll get into the cast and crew later. But the exposition in place of connective tissue between each episode, it really hurt it for me.
What about you, Alexis? Can you speak to the absence of connective tissue and whether or not that played into your enjoyment of the series?
Definitely. And I can speak to it because I actually started on White. When we were discussing how we were going to watch this, you showed an article with people had come up with various lists. It's like I remember one of them specifically said, if you want to watch this like it's a Tarantino film, watch it in this order.
Right.
But I wanted to do something different. So I actually went in chromatic order. I basically, all of these episodes are based on, are titled by, as colors. I literally did a rainbow, starting with white to pink to red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet.
Did a leprechaun show up at the end and hit you with a pot of gold?
If I get a pot of gold, do you think I'm going to keep working for you?
I mean, no, but I asked you if he hit you with it.
No, I didn't get hit with a pot of gold by a leprechaun.
Perfect. This is what our audience really wanted to know, by the way.
Sure. Don't worry. I get hit with a leprechaun or hit by a leprechaun or hit with something from a leprechaun. You will be the first to know, Mark.
Thank you.
But yeah, and for me, that was part of the challenge in watching this because every article that you had shared saying what order to watch these in, with the exception of chronological, every list said end with white.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to put this to the challenge. And I was like, well, if you say you can watch them in any order, then I'm going to start with white. And part of me is a little glad I did because I feel that there was a lot of breadcrumbs laid out in there that it was kind of fun to see get laid out in later episodes, especially with the orchid necklace, which I didn't find out about that to the end because, again, I finished with Violet. But I'm with you. The White episode was really good. I could figure out pretty much everything else that had happened, not like every minute detail, but I could figure out the bulk of the plot from the White episode. And I honestly just kind of sat back and thought, well, the only reason I'm going to keep watching this is because I got to have something to talk about on Mark's show.
So,
But again, I'm saying that I'm not dissing the idea of this concept, but I am not happy with how they handled it. I feel that this is a really good gimmick, but I want to see it in other people's hands. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. And I think being a slave to the narrative structure to where they felt like they had to compartmentalize each episode, I think the people that put this together felt like they had to do that. In order for you to get a complete viewing experience of each episode, everything had to be neatly compartmentalized. And Gavin, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think if you take, let's just go with the obvious one. Let's go with Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction is a nice, blended array of different scenes happening at different times. It's not, even though there are sections of the movie, you have, the stuff with John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson and their whole adventure. You have Bruce Willis and his kinky date with Ving Rhames. You have John
Travolta and Uma Thurman.
Right. There are absolutely, as is stated in the name, compartmentalized short stories that blended together form this larger than life story that Quentin Tarantino, but that is like redefined film in its time. But if you'll remember watching the Pulp Fiction, you didn't need a tremendous amount, as you said, Gavin, exposition to move you from one thing to the next. They expected the audience to be competent and coherent enough to be able to follow along. And if it made some weird windy turns, you were going to be okay with it because there was an element of you never knew what was going to happen next with Pulp Fiction. And it didn't necessarily matter that it was in all kinds of weird orders. Same thing with Reservoir Dogs. Reservoir Dogs is a really great example to compare to Kaleidoscope because it's also gimmicky. Reservoir Dogs is an entire movie about a heist that you never see. But by the end of the movie, through the dialogue and through some flashbacks, you are given every detail of that heist. So that by the end of the movie, which is also told out of order and through a series of flashbacks, you get the complete story, but you have to go along for the ride. And I think, and I'll let you speak on this, Gavin, that maybe following more of a Tarantino example with this, instead of not having tremendous amount of faith in your audience, maybe was a disservice to the show and to the audience at large.
And I think therein lies the problem with Kaleidoscope. And I'm glad you brought up Reservoir Dogs because to me, that's what this was aspiring towards. It wanted to be Reservoir Dogs, and it wasn't.
I actually just watched Reservoir Dogs the other night. That's one of my favorite Tarantino films.
High five, Alexis. You get one. You get one
from the void.
You get one free pass out of the basement.
Woohoo! I'm gonna take that. Go to Disneyland.
There's nothing wrong with aspiring to be Reservoir Dogs. Tarantino is recognized as a savant filmmaker for a reason. He innovates. He tells wonderful stories. He does it with actors and pulls the most out of them that anyone possibly could.
I was going to say, has anyone been able to pull anything out of Uma Thurman the way Quentin Tarantino did?
No. But he loved her feet, so she was his muse.
Who doesn't?
Me.
You're right, though. Nearly all of Tarantino's films are told without a straight chronological tangent. I mean, I remember when he talked about Kill Bill and he gave an interview, and the guy asked, "Why did you start with Victim 2 as opposed to starting with Victim 1?" And Tarantino's like, "The story just works better if you start with 2." And he's not wrong. It does work better.
He's not. By the way, that's a hell of a fight with a frying pan. Go ahead, Gavin.
And I think, to be fair to everyone involved, I don't think whoever the director of this miniseries is going to be compared favorably to Quentin Tarantino anytime soon. And again, that's okay. Not everybody's Kubrick, not everybody's Tarantino. It's okay. You can still be a good director and not be an elite top 0.1% of directors.
Real quick, just to answer your question, it's directed by a few different people, one of which Hollywood Shuffle fame, Robert Townsend. Robert Townsend and what was it, like his Criminal Empire or some shit, What was that comedy special from back in the day that we all loved? It was Robert Townsend and his partners in crime. That's what it was. Yeah. For those that don't know, like the whole Wayans family pretty much owe their career to Robert Townsend.
Absolutely.
He was one of the directors. Everardo Gout, Marzi Almus, who also did Shadow and Bone, Why the Last Man, Sandman, Lock and Key, and Outlander. Half of those made Robert Winfrey cry. Russell Fine, and that's it. So there's your directors.
And so therein may lie a big part of the problem is you've got a number of different voices trying to tell the same story as opposed to one cohesive thought and presentation throughout. I digress. But in trying to be Reservoir Dogs and not, trying to be Tarantino-esque and not, I think it's fair to say that the same audience that watches Tarantino films enthusiastically on the whole is probably a smarter audience than the general Netflix audience as a whole. And that's not to say everyone that watches Netflix is an idiot, but anytime you broaden the audience, the overall IQ is going to be a little less discerning. It's not, you're not going to get the people that are just absolute film geeks flocking to Kaleidoscope like they did to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to dissect every scene and every bit of dialogue.
I was going to say, it's not to beat up on this particular poor autistic child, but it's the reason why the Marvel movies have gotten dumber over the years.
Yeah,
as they got more successful.
They found James Gunn's formula. It works, and ta-da! Everything's $1 billion.
Yeah.
But I think if I were going to put my finger on one thing that really irks me about Kaleidoscope is that everything about it feels just a little bit less than.
I want to take that idea and extrapolate a little bit more on it, and then we can move into the craft, Alexis. I think my biggest gripe, and this is going to sound like a craft issue, but it's a problem with the gimmicky structure, and that is, I've used the word slight before, and slight is a way of saying this movie or this television show does not have tremendous thematic impact. It does not have gravitas. It's pulpy, it's cottony, it's cotton candy-ish, it's airy, it's there to be enjoyed, but it's not going to have a lasting. It's not The Shield, not The Wire, it's not The Sopranos. It's not going to have a lasting impact on you. It's not a movie. It's not a show or a movie that's going to make you think terribly one way or the other or feel terribly. It's there. It's a cookie. It's there for a little bit of sugary snack. And this isn't even slight. Like this is we had one story and we're like, okay, well, how are we gonna stretch it over 8 episodes? I don't know.
Slowly.
Yeah. Like I've seen I mentioned this, and again, not to continue to bring this up, but like I remember my initial complaint about season 2 of The Wire and then season 4. My God, season 4 being the best example because I've most recently complained about that. How it takes them forever to find the bodies in the row house. Like, wow, that all season for this one thing. Season 4 of The Wire, what do you call it? Kaleidoscope makes season 4 of The Wire seem like the fucking Flash. Like, man, this goes nowhere in a hurry. There is so little story in every one of these episodes where it was like they take a crumb of an idea and spend an hour on it. It's like it's the equivalent of like 3 or 4 guys all high as fuck having a conversation about nothing but having it for 6 hours until the pot runs out.
But you can listen to the conversation in any order you want.
Sure. I'm gonna let you jump in here, Alexis, but like in order, I think like I feel like the heist was somebody's script, and they were like, what if we take this movie, what if we add a bunch of shit to it, cut it up, and to sell it, we'll say it's this gimmicky thing, we can do it in any order that you want. And it's like, okay, but we really don't have enough story for that. Oh, it's okay, it's Netflix, it don't matter. Wow. Like, I was watching this thing, and it's not that I had like the worst experience ever, but I definitely kept feeling like Robert and I have talked about like the 3+ hour film and how this is the worst thing that's happened to Hollywood, since the Avengers. And it's for you, Gavin. It's for you. Tell Jed I said hi. Is the 3+ hour movie is the worst thing to happen to Hollywood since the Avengers, because they just don't fill the time. These things can be edited down to 2.5 hours, but nobody wants to kill their babies. Kaleidoscope is the biggest offender yet. It's an 8-hour movie that's really only a 2-hour movie. Fuck this show, Alexis. Fuck it. Sorry, go ahead.
I think my biggest problem, honestly, was, and I know we'll get into this a little bit more with the actors, but a lot of it was with the characters. This, it kills me because this show, miniseries, whatever you want to call it, is the epitome of we forgot, show, don't tell. I was praying that by the end, okay, so again, sometimes when you watch something like this where the story is out of order, like a Tarantino flick or whatever, there are parts that you don't quite understand. There are little character interactions that you don't quite get, and you're thinking, oh, it's going to get revealed. Oh, they're going to explain this a little bit further down the road. Oh, this is they're setting up for something. So much of that did not get resolved. There were so many tangents, so many character interactions that I was sitting there going, it's like, okay, I know that I'm like doing other things while watching this, but am I just not paying close enough attention to the show or what? Especially with the whole thing between Judy and Stan and Bob. I could not get what was going on with their triangle. I could not understand. I mean, it's like, okay, so Judy's married to Bob, but then we have that scene of her in the prison giving him the SIM cards, and he's saying he wants to propose to her. And then he meets Bob, and it's like, well, wait, were they already married and she didn't tell him? Or did they get married after he escaped from jail? Or I don't know. I couldn't follow it. You had this whole plot with Hannah finding out she's pregnant, and she's talking about the father of the child, but we don't know who the father of the child is or why this is a big deal.
Alexis, you know what you're kind of telling me with your criticism here? This is like that sort of icebreaker exercise you do in a group where somebody starts a story, and then it's an improv exercise.
And then
it is.
Yeah, and then right. And it's like the writers were doing it. They're all sitting at the writing table, like, I'm writing out this story. And then it's like, well, I'm going to do my own thing. And then the dam broke. But it just goes on and on. You're like, what? No one's following their own story at all. They're just kind of adding their own shit to it. Like, it's fine.
And nobody thought to make the hurricane a Sharknado.
I'd take a Sharknado over this.
It was right there for him.
Do you know what was missing from this movie, and it's a crime against film and cinema? No zombie tidal wave. That's what this movie really needed, a zombie tidal wave.
But yeah, I just, again, I sat back thinking, it's like, okay, so I know I watched this in a weird order. I fully admit that. But I'm trying to figure out, it's like, did watching this in the order that I did that lead to this being worse than I thought? Or was it just, and again, I think that's part of the problem here.
All right, go ahead, Gavin. You're like, oh, sorry, finish
yeah,
up.
Yeah, Gavin, you're shaking your head, please.
Oh, no, I don't think the order that anybody watched it contributed to anything. The show's just a mess.
Okay. All right, I think that's as good.
I will say there are some bits that I really like. There's some jokes that get set up, and again, if you watch it in a different order, I love it. You have that scene in the Pink episode where Teresa tries to take out Bob by hitting him in the shoulder with her butcher's knife, and then in an earlier episode, you find out she said it's like the day I can't chop some shoulder, referring to pork shoulder, is the day you can take me out. And I was like, shit, that was funny. You have the thing where they're talking about what they're going to.
Can we talk about the fact that Jai Courtney was the T-1000 in this show for no good reason? Like, I get, like, there are certain Supermen in action movies that can take an amazing amount of damage, and like no human, fucking poor Scarlett Johansson dropped from orbit in her own movie, and and dusts herself off and continues to fuck off.
Yeah, broke her nose, severed the nerve, and yet she's somehow able to put it back to normal.
I mean, I can't. I think it was like one of the Batman movies where like he just falls and hits every fucking roof on the way down, and it just dusts himself off. He's fine, but Jai Courtney, who is not a Superman, Gavin. Jai Courtney, who's just a dude, and he gets shot, stabbed, hit with an axe, and or butcher thing, and like it just keeps on going. And it's like, why is he fucking indestructible? Why?
I wish I had a reason for you.
He was definitely more entertaining as Captain Boomerang, and it kills me that when they finally made him interesting, they killed him off. Because he was not interesting in the first Suicide Squad movie. That character was boring.
All right.
Side note, who decided to have him dress in tracksuit mafia?
I was gonna say, like, is that just a Jai Courtney thing? Now, it's like, I'll be in your show or your movie, but I have to wear a tracksuit the entire time. Like he goes into costuming, and they're like, "We have this thing for you." It's like, no, I'm wearing my costume. But is that from home? Yes, I have an entire collection, an entire wardrobe of Adidas tracksuits. It's all I wear. All right, let's get into the craft here. Let's talk about performances. Giancarlo Esposito is, if people are listening to this, do they ever say anything positive on this network about anything? Yes, it was called Violent Night, and we praised that movie up and down. But here's another thing that we liked about
Violent Night and the menu.
And the menu, yes, and the North.
And Ted Lasso.
But we've spent the first half of this kind of shitting on the show. So let's say some positive things about it. Giancarlo Esposito is holding this thing up on his shoulders.
Has he ever given a bad performance? I don't think he is. I don't think that man has ever given a bad performance.
No, he elevates most of what he's in, including dumb shit like The Mandalorian. But I'm just tweaking nipples. But no, Giancarlo Esposito, I think, is really the glue holding this entire show together. I think the way he's written in terms of being out for revenge, and I think it's sort of a fun concept for your heist is I'm stealing from this guy to get back at him. This is my way of getting back at this guy for taking everything from me. So it's not just a heist movie, a heist show. It's also a revenge tale. And I think Giancarlo Esposito does a really great job, Gavin, of giving you that pain and anguish and dogged determinism. And at the end, that sort of, blinded by the need for revenge to the exclusion of all else. He is about the only thing holding this whole fucking show together. And without him, you've got nothing.
So I think what you said about this being somebody's script that just kind of got piled on and jigsawed and improv'd into what we got.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you can see just the faint chalk outline of a blockbuster here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you can see it in the casting choices. And I think that you can see it in the performances that we got. Because do you know what Paz Vega's not?
What is Paz Vega not?
She's not Selma Hayek. And you know what Jai Courtney's not? He's not Gerard Butler.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you were going to say Tom Hardy.
And it felt like, that fits too. But it felt like that was the whole thing with this movie, is that everything was not the name brand.
Yeah.
To the point that without looking at IMDb and fast forwarding through the credits and not watching the credits at the end of each episode, after the first 3 episodes, I kept asking myself, is that actually Giancarlo Esposito? If it is, why is he doing a Giancarlo Esposito impression instead of just being Giancarlo Esposito? Because even though he was, agreed, the best thing in this, it's certainly not the nerdy guy that's not quite Huey from The Boys.
Oh my God, I thought for the longest time that was the actor.
See? It's
fucking ditto. I swear, I looked at him like, is that Huey?
Yeah, okay. It's not.
Yeah, it's like, is that Quaid's son? Yeah.
I'll tell you what, now that you've said it, because I kept thinking Paz Vega was actually What's-Her-Nuts that used to be with Tom Cruise.
Penelope Cruz.
Yeah, no shit. I thought Paz Vega was Penelope Cruz, and now that you're saying, I'm like, holy crap, that's off-brand Penelope Cruz. And you're right, that guy is off-brand Huey. And
Yeah.
this is
I
just on
thought
and
that
off.
the girl playing Judy was Lizzie Kaplan. I'm like, wait, that's not Lizzie Kaplan?
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is
I mean,
great.
she had moments where she looked like Brittany Murphy. I mean,
Kaleidoscope. Welcome to the lookalike show.
yeah, it's the Dollar General brand of a blockbuster. And you know, I'm not going to ask Giancarlo Esposito to give us his best effort on something like this. You know, Gustavo Fring deserves much more of his energy. But it just, when I said the whole thing feels just a little bit less than, that's what I mean. Like, even down to the casting choices, you can see that this was probably originally intended to be something much bigger than what it is.
Right. Can we get Ray Liotta? No, but what about his body double? Yeah, he's fine. He'll be the villain.
You know what? I actually didn't mind Rufus Sewell.
Oh, he's fantastic.
But he was best in the Violet episode when he was playing a little bit larger than life, kind of chewing the scenery a little bit. The rest of the time, when he has to play so much more subdued, he's boring as hell. But in the Violet episode, I was like, why? Again, I saw that episode last. I'm like, why couldn't I have gotten this for the rest of it? He would have been so much more fun.
He's a tremendous
more
villain.
memorable.
And if there's anybody that hears this that has never watched A Knight's Tale, to see him portray the villain in A Knight's Tale, it's a masterclass. It's fantastic.
Was anyone
Just
else annoyed
don't watch
by the
the Zorro sequel to see him as the villain. He's terrible in that.
Don't do that.
The gal playing Giancarlo Esposito's daughter? Am I alone in thinking like she is at best fucking direct-to-video actress? Like, I did not I was not impressed, and this might have been too much performance for her to achieve.
If this were the 1990s, she would be the lead in Witchcraft 7.
Yeah. She felt like the hostage in Predator. You know.
Wait, I'm sorry, which character are you talking about again?
Hannah.
Oh, it's Prudence from Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Is that who that was?
Yeah, and she was also in Uncharted.
Oh,
Remember
that's right. And we talked about how we liked her in Sabrina. Though Sabrina is the reason I won't watch Wednesday, because I'm getting really fucking tired of, you know, the magic school kids. Sorry, that's a whole other tangent. But now that you're saying it, did she get? Wow, she's gotten worse over time, because she was great on Sabrina, but they limited her role. She was great in Uncharted, but she was just a goon. And now she has to actually like act opposite Giancarlo Esposito. And this is a great example of how a great actor will make you seem shittier than you might actually be, because you're not as good as you think you are. She's awful in this.
I agree. She's gorgeous. She is beyond gorgeous. But
I kind of missed the short hair. I got to be honest with you. But you know, she's not wrong. She's a pretty gal, but she can't act for shit. Not in this show, at least, Gavin.
Well, I don't think we probably got anybody's best efforts here.
Oh, I don't know. This was Jai Courtney. This might have been his best role yet, besides Boomerang, Mr. Captain Boomerang.
Captain Boomerang.
And store brand Huey. This is his big break.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, just closing out on performances. Was there any good, bad, or ugly performances, Gavin, that you wanted to speak on?
I mean, I always enjoy watching Giancarlo Esposito, even if it's not his best work. But everything was just kind of middling. Nothing offensively bad for me. But certainly nothing that 10 years from now I'm going to say, hey, did you ever watch Kaleidoscope? And did you see Sun? No, it's very forgettable. Other than Giancarlo Esposito doing a fantastic impression of Giancarlo Esposito.
All right, moving on. The heist episode almost works for me. It's definitely the best of the entire series. I think if you're watch it be okay. I thought the heist episode they pulled off pretty well up until the very end. It kind of, Alexis, falls off a cliff for me towards the end, to where I think run here I think that last little bit with the heist, they were really reaching for something, and I don't think they got it. I think the heist episode kind of dies at the end. What did you think of it?
Well, again, I started with the heist episode, so I don't really think it died for me. You know, there were parts of it I did enjoy, and there were parts in the later episodes I liked seeing how they kind of figured it out. Although I'm just going to say this, the whole walk thing, the walk sensor that has got to be the dumbest thing I have ever heard of in my life. It's like, if it doesn't recognize your walk, it's like, it doesn't recognize your walk.
Your gait.
Yeah, it's like, well, heaven forbid somebody ever walks in with a sprained ankle.
You know, they missed an opportunity to do like a Ministry of Silly Walks thing. That's what I want. Instead of the bees, I just wanted somebody to be like, ha, you know, as he's walking in there. You know, they you hear Dive Soul Bro in the background. Like, you're a Dive Soul Bro, you know, just keep on grooving. Gavin knows what I'm talking about.
I do.
But even then, I think it did kind of fall off a little bit. But again, since I watched that at the beginning,
that's what I'm saying. Like, the last part of that heist just drags at the end, to where, like, once they do the big reveal that Hannah already moved the bonds, and then it's like I feel like as they were editing that episode, they didn't realize they had another 20 minutes to go, and they were like, "Fuck, we need pickup shots now." You know, like, I don't feel like that last little bit of the heist is particularly cohesive. Is what I meant by kind of dies at the end.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Like I said, I really feel like there's a great idea with this, you know, choose which episode you want to watch next thing. I really think that in more capable hands, we could have a great miniseries. I think this is a creative idea. I think it's fun. And I think it also leads to a lot of discussion about how we perceive the film. I was talking about this with some other people who were watching in different orders, and they were discussing how they were, you know, picking up clues in various things and how they were perceiving characters. And I like that. But this show just doesn't know how to get us to relate to these characters in one particular episode. You know, it's very hard to, you know.
Hang on, I want to piggyback on that, and I want to draw Gavin into this, because I think actually you made a really good point there, because you're talking about likability, you know, and I want you to talk about your thoughts on the heist itself, but let's weave this in there too. Whether or not you like the Ocean's movies or the Italian Job, I think, you know, or like Gone in 60 Seconds, the thing that makes all of these movies successful, other than how slick your heist is filmed, is the likability of your thieves. If your thieves stink, if these are not people you want to see, you know, the guy they're ripping off. So, like, here's a great example. The first Ocean's movie, I think it's Andy Garcia. You don't like the Andy Garcia character. You want to see him ripped off. George Clooney and Brad Pitt have fucking charisma for days, and you want to see them succeed. You want to see George Clooney make good and make up with Julia Roberts and make gorgeous, dumb Hollywood babies. Like, you want to see Brad Pitt eat a sandwich and be full for once in that movie. No, you want to see them succeed, because these are all, like, Bernie Mac is fantastic in this. Like, you want to see him get his money. The Italian Job, you know, Charlize Theron and I think it's Matt Damon that's in that one.
Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah,
and Seth Green and Mos Def and Jason Statham. I haven't seen that movie in over 10 years, and I remember those characters, and I love them. Right.
These are fun, likable people. You want to see them succeed. Does anyone, Gavin, want to see fucking Jai Courtney succeed in this? Because he's an asshole. Does anyone want to see, what the fuck's her name? The other broad in this movie. Rosaline Elbay. Does anyone give a shit if she succeeds in this thing? No one gives a shit. You know, you kind of want to see Giancarlo succeed, because, like, he's
a sympathetic character at least.
Yeah, he at least got fucked by the villain and lost his wife in the process and went to prison. Like, you want to see him get away with murder, but the rest of them, you're like, no. Like, I hope they all get shot.
Yeah, they're all
It's
terrible.
not good writing.
So, in regards to the heist itself, I think what you said, likability of the thieves, whether you're talking about the Ocean's Crew, the Italian Job, or even going back to Newman and Redford in The Sting, you need to have somebody that you like as your protagonist. On top of that, I think the most fun part of any heist movie is the Rube Goldberg-esque way that they get into the vault. Right. And I'll give Kaleidoscope credit on this. We had thermal sensors, we had a flooded vault, we had bees, we had a weird, not quite Guy Fawkes mask.
Sorry. Covered in bees!
Yeah, would have been a lot more fun with Nicolas Cage there to revisit the bees. But yeah, I mean, they did well with the actual heist. Right. But yeah, you don't like any of these people. You've got this very surly, antagonistic guy that's just really kind of stupid and aggressive. Paz Vega's character probably could have been more likable if they had given her any depth other than maybe she's a snitch. They tried to make the FBI agent sympathetic, but never really felt anything for her. Giancarlo, he's, again, a sympathetic character. Stan, or not Huey, as we referred to him earlier, he's just kind of a miserable human being with no backbone. RJ, the guy that just drummed on everything. I hate people that drum on things in public settings, and so I was happy when he died. There was nobody there that I wanted to see walk away with any of the money, and I guess it's kind of...
when you're cheering for Mr. Blonde, who sawed off a guy's ear more than any character in this entire fucking show, we have a problem with the character writing.
Yeah, and I think that's I think that's current television and movies. Everything has to be angsty, mopey, hot topic. Just kill me. I know this is the first time Alexis has had the pleasure of dealing with me. I hate everything. I really do. If you think Pat's bad, I'm worse.
Why do you think Mark's avoided putting us on the same show? He's terrified if you and I ever meet, we're going to kill each other.
Yeah, there was
I'm
definitely
a friendly grump. I just hate everything.
Yeah, you're the friendly grump. I'm the little ray of sunshine on this network.
I was going to say, when Gavin was like, I want to talk Kaleidoscope, and then you were like, I want to talk Kaleidoscope too. I'm like, fuck, I got to have Alexis and Gavin on the same show. Yikes. Like, let's get Pat in here. We can really round this out.
Look, as long as we're not talking Marvel, which is why I haven't brought up how good of a heist movie Ant-Man is.
I love Ant-Man. Paul Rudd is infinitely likable. And if they had a Paul Rudd...
there you go. Again, Paul Rudd.
If they had a Paul Rudd type character, they would have been fine here.
I was going to say, so since you brought it up, and I think you brought it up just to tweak a nipple, but it's actually a relevant point. The thing that makes Ant-Man work, aside from it was Once Upon a Time Edgar Wright's script, and then it got, shanghaied by Peyton Reed, was the fact that Paul Rudd's Scott Lang is infinitely likable. He is everyman. He is someone you want to see succeed.
Even Michael Douglas as Hank Pym is likable. He's the most sarcastic human being on the planet, but he's still likable.
And not enough domestic violence for my taste.
And Kaleidoscope.
Hey, that worked.
And Kaleidoscope on the other hand.
Give me $1 million.
Kaleidoscope on the other hand is just joyless. There's no fun in it.
Like I said before, the only thing I really got a kick out of was little jokes that were set up and paid off in later episodes based on the order. The chopped shoulder, finding out about the pink. He said Bob says he wants to see the pink sands. But I had watched Pink earlier, and then you see the scene of him passing out, looking at his blood in the sand, and the sand's turning pink. And then when he later says, I want to see the pink sands, I'm like, oh, okay, that was clever. This is it clever?
This might be the most morose heist I've ever seen captured on film, now that you mention it.
But again, it's like, is that clever because of the order I watched it in, or was that clever because it's clever writing? I don't know.
I think it's fairly clever, just not terribly well executed.
Yeah.
All right. With the remaining time that we have left, Gavin, anything craft-wise left unsaid, in terms of like color paletting, settings, dialogue that you want to make mention of?
I'm half colorblind, so I'm no use to you there. But I will say there were some shots that I felt like were very well done. I think they did a very good job of framing the group dialogue scenes so that nothing felt like it was a true center point and that everybody had equal weight when they had 4 or 5 characters on screen. They were spaced nicely. They were positioned nicely. And I think they did it.
Let me quick piggyback on that, because so often a movie like this, everyone's Aaron fucking Sorkin. It's almost too slick. Everyone's too witty. Everyone's too sharp.
Boy, that wasn't a problem here.
Yeah, no, but for me, that's almost complimentary.
Yeah,
I mean, I can.
No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I can see where it might bother somebody because you want that snappy, witty, sharp, Aaron Sorkin-esque dialogue. It's what makes these heist movies kind of fun because they kind of go hand in hand. Bold move, Cotton, to make everyone not sharp and not witty, and kind of just like schlubs, like just like we're just doing a heist. I don't really want to be here.
Yeah.
Like, interesting.
But on top of that, I did enjoy the soundtrack. I thought they did a good job with the soundtrack, placing very likable, well-known songs, mixing them in with a little bit more underground and less well-known stuff that suited each episode and suited the scenes they were in. I did think that if I were going to heap praise on any one element of this show, it would be the soundtrack.
All right, Alexis, take me home, baby girl. Good, bad, or ugly. Craft elements, story structure, plot, settings, color paletings, all of it. Go.
Well, I'm going to piggyback on the soundtrack and point out there are a couple of moments where they reused certain songs and certain elements that I thought really paid off well. For example, the same song plays at the end of the Pink episode that starts at the beginning of the Violet episode, sort of bookending the series. I always find little details like that to be very clever, and I like that. And yeah, I'm with you, Gavin. The music in this was really good. But again, like I said before, I want to see this concept utilized again. I like this. I like that we are experimenting with what we can do now that we are no longer bound to you can only watch what's on TV on a certain night unless you got your freaking VCR plugged in. We have the technology. I want to see us take advantage of it. Just get it into more capable hands. I will also say, though, I am not colorblind, hence why I decided to go with the chromatic order. And there were quite a few scenes in every episode where they used suggestive tones of the episode. The pink one that stood out to me the most because we have the scenes of the agent using her little pink bunny rabbit. And you have the scene with the cherry blossoms, the violet scene. You have the what do they call it? The orchid necklace.
Yeah.
You got that. The green episode takes place in the prison, so there's a lot of tones of greens. I'm just going to add this. I can't believe we didn't bring this up, but the scene of the prisoners getting high on mushrooms is going to go down as one of the funniest things I have seen in a while, and that was hilarious.
I was amused by that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. Regardless of what you say about that whole scene, cutting to them giving themselves shoulder massages, that was great. But yeah, this is not a bad idea for us to utilize for a Netflix series. I would like to see it done again. Just give us some more likable characters, please.
All right. If there's nothing else, Gavin, anything you wanted to add? If not, then we're going to close up shop.
No, I think, Hail Caesar was a movie that when I watched it in theaters, I didn't like it. And then I got home and I thought about it. And I kept thinking of little moments throughout Hail Caesar. And I thought, well, that was enjoyable. I really like that. Josh Brolin was fantastic. Maybe I should watch this again. And then I rewatched Hail Caesar and I really liked it. And every time I've gone back to revisit Hail Caesar, I've liked it a little bit more to the point that it's probably become one of my all-time top 10 favorite movies.
More so than The Master?
No, it's not above The Master. But
Okay.
it has.
Who's jerking off into the ocean in fucking Hail Caesar then?
See, if that was in there, then it would skyrocket. But
okay, that's what I'm talking about.
But it was something that I initially had a distaste for, but I was willing to revisit it, and it's grown on me since then. I don't anticipate having that issue with Kaleidoscope. It is what it is. I'm content to leave it in the rear view. And honestly, I don't know that I'll ever think about it again after tonight.
We, with Babylon and some other movies, whether we liked them or hated them, one thing that we wanted to praise was not the cinematography, but the use of the camera. Again, I've said it in Damn You Hollywood, and I'll say it now. As Robert once said, it's not that you tilted the camera, it's why do you tilt the camera. And one of my big criticisms of modern television, especially, but also some modern movie making, is filmmakers use the camera as an instrument to capture motion and performance. They move the camera, they swing the camera, they move the camera, they do things with it, they create art with the camera. It is, they use it in like a paintbrush, or some people use it like a gun. They literally stand and shoot the fucking thing. It's just and is as static as the day is long. And therein lies the contrast in films, where some are beautifully shot, and they may not be the world's greatest movies. Babylon in many ways sucked, but boy, did they know how to swing that camera. And it made for a more pleasurable viewing experience than if, say Brett Ratner had shot it, and he would have shot it like a gun. And to Kaleidoscope's credit, and if you want to piggyback on this, you can, Alexis, or you can go into your final thoughts. I really, other than some of the performance stuff that I mentioned before, the only other thing that that really stood out to me about this show was the use of the camera. There were some pretty artful shots in this show, and credit all the credit in the world to the directors of photography and the directors of each episode for at least getting that much right. This isn't a complete loss. I don't know how much I would recommend this to people, but I think if you're kind of like a film snob like me and you're looking for something that's at least interestingly shot, I would say Kaleidoscope is at least worth watching the Heist episode for, to see what they do with that camera. You keep mentioning the pink sands thing, Alexis, and one of the standout shots to me was Jai Courtney falling down, and the camera then tilts sideways, and and everything is straight up, and then it not fades, but it dissolves to pink. I'm like, that's pretty cool. Like, not everything captured my attention in Kaleidoscope, and there was definitely times I was distracted. But occasionally there would be a shot where I was like, oh, that was really artfully done. Well done. Way to use your instrument. So anything about the camera work? If not, you can give your last words, and then we'll get into plugs.
Actually, yeah, the cinematography in this was quite good. You guys mentioned about how they did a good job framing up the group shots. Yes, I like those. I like a lot of the pan shots where they show people working in the warehouse practicing. I like the various shots where they build up whether or not someone's going to be rounding around the corner, or it turns out that they're actually walking into a completely different building. Shots like that, I think, are very creative and not exactly all that easy to time out right. So, you know what? You're right. I'll give 2 points to this review for the cinematography.
All right. Well, that then ends our review of Kaleidoscope. I think it was worthy of discussion. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Whether or not you enjoyed the show, your mileage may vary. Hey, Alexis, I understand you make homemade jewelry out of game pieces and paint houses. Why don't you tell the people about it?
Oh, I thought I just got locked in the basement.
Okay, you're gone. Bye. You gotta be good? You gotta behave?
Can I call you an asshole?
One time? Sure.
Okay, yeah, you're an asshole.
Now go do your plugs. My love.
Thank you. Yes, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. We are in our off season right now as far as the conventions because I don't like driving in winter weather. But our online stores are still open. You can find us on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon. We just uploaded a bunch of brand new products into there, including a handful of things based around the hit TV show Wednesday, because even though Mark doesn't want to watch it, I sure enjoyed that series, and I know a lot of you guys did as well. If you're in the Kansas City area, be sure to swing by Level 1 Game Shop. We just dropped off a big shipment of keychains and wire wrap dice necklaces for them, as well as all of their awesome board games. They have a great selection. As far as the convention circuit, we are going to be getting back on the road in March. We are looking at Planet Comic Con. That's our home show here in Kansas City. We love it there. We are so excited. And I just got an invite today for a 2-day event in Lawrence, Kansas at a library. I've never done that before. I think it sounds like fun. I'm probably going to do it. So, of course, you can always follow us on Instagram and Facebook and Under Duress Twitter. That is Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
Gavin, I heard a rumor. A little birdie told me that maybe you and Pat might do a wrestling show. Maybe.
Yeah, we're working on it. Maybe.
We've been working on it for like 100 years now. What the fuck, man?
Well, time and space. Time and space. But we are still efforting. We've not thrown in the towel.
Oh my God. I just put your kid on the podcast. It's fine. I do it all the time. Occasionally I strangle a child on the podcast. You've seen me do it.
You don't invite your kid on the podcast. They just walk into the blue screen, into the green screen.
No, because
Right, literally.
Then he's up too late, and then he's overtired, and then he doesn't sleep at night, which means I don't sleep at night, and I like to sleep at night.
How old's your kid?
3.
Oh boy, the fun
My God,
age.
has it been that long?
It has.
Oh, Gavin. Remember those casual hero days?
Vaguely.
Do you remember the parameters? Tell me about
Yes,
the parameters,
the
Gavin.
parameters.
Tell me about the parameters, Gavin.
Oh, the parameters, the guidelines. What are the parameters of this list? Chris, read some Wikipedia. I guess I'll be back if and when they ever decide to release Ted Lasso season 3. They managed to go a full calendar year without it. So
Hey, listen, I told most of these motherfuckers I'm not podcasting with you anymore. I'm not doing any more TV, but I'll podcast with you.
Actually, Gavin, he's not lying. Mark and I sat down to discuss what shows that, now that I'm in charge of TV Party tonight, I said, well, which shows do you want to still headline so I don't step on any toes? And he said flat out, Ted Lasso.
Yep. Yep. Ted Lasso is a definite. It is the one ray of sunshine in my life as far as television goes. However, there does appear to be a new, I don't know if it's a new season, a spinoff, a new series, but Justified is returning to television.
I
I'm
heard.
very excited about. So
We might have to go back and do the old Justified first and then the new Justified.
if you do the old Justified, count me in.
All right. I got to get through 800 seasons of David Simon stuff, and then maybe I can start working on the Sean Murphy. Sean Murphy, was he Justified and Shield and all that? Yeah, then maybe then I can do I can do all the Sean Murphy shows and podcast on those for another 100 years. All right. As for me and what I do, I think you're done with your plugs now, right? Or you're not plugs? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So this has been an interesting week. Jesse did a source material for something called Cheetah Man, which was some sort of comic that came with a video game, I guess.
Yep.
Wait, wasn't Jesse supposed to be on the show tonight? Because he was asking about what orders we were all watching.
No, he's doing his unspoken. Did you not listen to the most recent Metal Hammer of Doom jukebox where I was like, oh, go ahead and podcast with your unspoken issues friends. That's fine. You don't like me anymore. I did a whole guilt trip thing like I would do to my wife. Did it to him. It was great. It's for the world to hear.
Lovely.
I was like, oh, you don't want to podcast with me? That's fine. He was like, I have you like moved shit. It's not my fault. I'm like, that's fine. You don't really like me anymore anyway. Oh, this went on for a good 10 minutes. It was great. Anyway, so Ronnie Adams, after he put the packet on the glass, what glass? The little glass door in the microwave. Oh my God! Trying to teach Ronnie how to use StreamYard nearly gave me a stroke. But he got it together finally, and him and Pat did an amazing review of Tulsa King, which is now up in the archive. Myself and Robert Winfrey did an afternoon recording, DMU Hollywood, for the movie Plane with Gerard Butler and Mike Coulter. Had a great time talking about that. We spent like half of it just trying to convince people to go to the goddamn movies and save our cinemas. Go see movies like Plane and stop watching stupid Marvel movies. It's killing theaters. Tonight was Kaleidoscope. And hey, Ronnie Adams allegedly is threatening to bring back the Screaming Boy podcast, at least for one podcast. He wants to talk about the future of Dungeons and Dragons, for whatever that may be. I was on Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do, and they released their Best of 2022 episode that I was on. That'll be up on our network this Friday. Saturday, Everyone Loves a Bad Guy. Oz. Dun, 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 dun. You know what I've always wondered? Yes, Oz. I believe I'm on that episode of Everyone Loves a Bad Guy. So that'll be fun. And then Sunday, it's Metal Hammer of Doom Sundays from back in the Blog Talk Radio days. We're going to be airing our Amon Amarth Deceiver of the Gods review. Next week, we've got reviews for Doom Patrol Season 4. We'll have Ryan Johnson's Glass Onion, a Knives Out sequel. And then Thursday, myself and Jesse Starcher and possibly Andrew Graham will be doing yet another David Simon jam, this time TV Party Tonight for a Generation Kill. And that's what's going on here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. I want to thank Gavin. Thank you, Gavin. Thank you, Gavin. And I want to thank you, Alexis, for joining us here, for giving up your seat to let the man come around and take back his podcast for one night only, baby, to talk Kaleidoscope. For Alexis Hejna, for Gavin Napier, I'm Overdramatic. Be well, be safe, and behave.